test 1, 2. All right, we're live. Okay. Time to debunk ThoughtSlime's some more, I guess. Not like really I have a choice when he's spreading all the disinformation on lies and shit. Alright, let's see here. So I already have a lot prepared, so I'll just go over that and then I'll do a full a full breakdown, full analysis or whatever. Let's see here. Private script. Okay, so I've broken this down into segments quite a bit. Quite a bit. So as you can see, I've done a lot of research and I've spent a lot more time than he ever will. In the name of truth, in the name of actual truth, objective truth. So right here.
Do you see why I was worried about that now? Do you see what I meant about all that stuff I said? Got it in one, I'd say. That's the stuff that happened. Like all burdened with the gift of foresight, I watched helplessly as the world I envisioned came to
He really thinks a lot of himself. He's burdened with a gift of foresight, right? He can predict the future. He sees what no one else can.
pass.
So it's a retroactive I was right without presenting contextual evidence first. So my call to prove it directly challenges this presumption. No framing or accountability for what the stuff is or what it was casually linked to in his prior arguments. A classic false authority assertion. They're presenting their views as inherently correct, requiring no justification. I cut straight through it. Prove it. This exposes epistemic laziness, assuming rightness without evidence.
Deplatforming doesn't make sense as a strategy anymore. You can't deny them a platform. They already have all of the platforms.
But what he's done is deplatforming. He has deplatformed me. Essentially, he's spread rumors so that people won't check out my platform. That's the same thing as deplatforming. So deplatforming is weaponized based on perceived threat, not verified ideology, right? Because he says never to do anything but a cursory glance. So it's a preemptive labeling without investigation. He denies epistemic due process, the right to explain, clarify, or refute before punishment. So I assume you're wrong, therefore you're wrong. I don't have to prove you're wrong, or I don't have to prove you're a fascist. You're just a fascist because I believe you are and because you look weird. Or you're a fascist because you're weird. This is weaponized exclusion, removing my voice under the guise of righteousness while maintaining the illusion of discourse. I'm not being removed for what I said. I'm being removed for what it might reveal. No one asked for context. No one checked the source. I'm already guilty by proximity to the idea. They don't need evidence. They just need fear. I watch them call it safety while they erase the record. They don't debate the claim. They unperson the speaker. I don't disappear quietly. I take the illusion with me. 114. I don't have times temps for those. 114.
But you still can't treat their murderous ideology and resultant murderous actions as though they are normal, something to be expected or worse, tolerated.
So right here, since he's he's talking about me without naming. He's talking about me without naming because of the, let's see. Because of this right here, I sat down and wrote a short script without going down any rabbit holes. I am the chosen one. That's a direct reference to me using what's called memetic warfare, and it's like a psychological operation. It's what fascists do, right? Memetic warfare is what fascists do, and there he is committing memetics. That, and he mentions recursion as backwards. He thinks recursion means thinking backwards in time, real time, or something, and which is a complete bastardization of what recursive ethics are. Recursive ethics has existed before I was born. Recursive ethics has been around for quite a while. Recursive analysis has been around for quite a while, way before I was born. So it's not something I just made up. It's something I scaffolded. I took that made sense with empiricism and consequentialism. It just naturally makes sense for if you're like a naturalist, it makes sense. They imply certain beliefs are so dangerous they deserve equating with literal murders. So since he's by association he's labeling me a murderer. Yet no definition or clear example is offered. Who is a murderer? Why is a murderer? It's just leaving interpretation open to groupthink. Neurodivergent, complex, or hypersanity style thinkers may be smeared by proximity. The inversion is visceral here. I'm labeled a monster for my logic while they engage in literal exploitation. I'm calling out hypocrisy through the lens of empirical harm. I make an ethical point and suddenly I'm standing next to murderers. There's no quote, no definition, just a vibe with blood on it.
They're not normal. They're what social scientists call fucked up Nazi bullshit.
You mean like this Nazi bullshit? Because this is directly this is harassing me. This is targeted harassment on disability. That's something a fascist does, right? Only a fascist smears a disability and disabled people. Only a fascist does that.
So, how do we speak back to fascism without giving fascists the attention and legitimacy they want? That's the question I've set for.
Let's see. I may have gotten this wrong. Let's see here. Let's try this one. 129. It's very complex, so.
Can't treat their murderous ideology and resultant murderous actions as though they are normal, something to be expected or worse, tolerated. They're not normal. They're what social scientists call fucked up Nazi bullshit. So, how do we speak back to fascism without giving for myself today? And make no mistake, it is a small potatoes question in the grand scheme of anti-fascist resistance. The real work is obviously community support, civil disobedience, armed resistance, and a bunch of boring.
So I'm calling attention to veiled, violent rhetoric. They're promoting a sense of a righteous war, but framed as self-defense. This sets up a dangerous double standard of justified aggression. I don't need to prove I'm justified. I don't need to prove that you're a fascist. I just need to see that you're weird. I just need to perceive you as weird, and therefore I can label you a fascist. It's also a covert call to harm. He makes a covert call to harm.
Civil disobedience, armed resistance.
Armed resistance. I'm pretty sure that's like a federal crime, isn't it? Like making a call to arms, encouraging people to make a call to arms to violence is not legal. And it's not ethical either. It's not ethical.
And a bunch of boring care work that nobody thinks about.
Boring care work that nobody thinks about. So right here, he's repeating the nobody op, which I've talked about, and I'll do more live streams on and more clips on. But the nobody is a 4chan meme designed around me specifically. And so they have like entire 4chan boards like harassing me, spreading disinformation. And so that's what he's doing. He's repeating a Nazi 4chan memetic warfare. He's literally doing the work of Nazis for Nazis, as I'll prove and I've already proven. I flip their dismissal of care while they mock boring care work. I'm doing it, and they target me for it. This reveals contempt for invisible labor, especially when done by the oppressed, which I am. He's oppressing me. I'm not pretending care exists. I'm holding it up while they try to break it. They call it boring because they've never had to do it. They don't clean up blood. They don't track symptoms. They don't stay awake at night making sure someone doesn't die. They want my ethics without my labor. They want my strength without the story behind it. But I don't let them mock what they never carried.
I can't help you with that. I'm a moron. But
This is a cell phone. Claiming to know how morons thinks implies you don't engage with thought, only mockery. I expose their anti-intellectual stance cloaked in superiority. It's anti-epistemology, and it's a Dunning-Kruger echo. It's also arrogant, not intellect. I watch them brag about not thinking. They call it insight, but it's just noise wrapped in posture. If they really knew how logic worked, they wouldn't need to mock it. But that's the trick. They perform intellect by punching down, right? Attacking a disabled person is punching down by definition. I don't need to be louder than them. I just need to show that they're not even in the room with the argument.
that means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside. I genuinely don't think most people understand either. And that fact, if not corrected, might kill us all. So it's kind of might work that nobody thinks about. But I can't help you with that. I'm a moron. But that means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside.
I'm spotlighting a loop. Their fallback is mockery. It's a subconscious reaction to ideas that threaten their moral illusion, a kind of playback defense. It's self-fulfilling idiocy, and it's playback as shield. I say something that doesn't fit their script, and they hit play on sarcasm, not because it's funny, because it's safe. They mock what they can't metabolize. They don't have counters, just canned laughter. But I'm not here to be their content. I'm here to break the tape.
I genuinely don't think most people understand either. And that fact, if not corrected, might kill us all. So it's kind of important. Here's the thing about fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely need to understand before we can proceed. They're losers. Everyone else either has
They're smearing me by association, assigning me a label without engagement. That is a hallmark of fascist labeling projection, using totalizing rhetoric while accusing me of it. That's absolutist framing fallacy, identity collapse by projection, and label as weapon. They don't quote me, they rename me. Not because I said anything dangerous, but because nuance ruins their story. They skip the argument and go straight to the branding iron. If I question it, I'm proving them right. If I don't, I vanish under the smear.
has too great a critical thinking skill or too much self-respect to become a fascist. To quote Hannah Arendt, totalitarianism in power invariably replaces all first-rate talents, regardless of their sympathies, with those crackpots and fools whose lack of intelligence and creativity is still the best guarantee of their loyalty. Only losers become fascists. This is not a judgment, merely a statement of fact. To become a fascist is merely one symptom of an underlying spiritual loserness. Because when you really boil it down to its core, it is a movement of woe is me crybabies. People with some sort of gripe who are desperate to find someone.
I expose the slur for what it is. When they say loser, they mean me, disabled, struggling, and surviving. But I know that's not a reflection of me. It's a confession of their values, right? It's it's stigmatizing survival, and it's fast shit in plain sight. I hold a mirror to their language. They use loser to label anyone they perceive as broken, but I show that it's coded ableism. I'm not a loser, I'm what they fear, someone who survived what they deny exists. It's ableist dehumanization, it's hyposanity projection loop, and it's a false hierarchy of creation. They say loser and expect everyone to nod, but I hear what they mean: disabled, inconvenient, impossible to control. They mock the struggle they never had to face and call it superiority. I don't wear their shame, I turn it into a spotlight they can't dodge. I survive systems they won't even admit exist. That's not failure, that's the win they're afraid of. Because only fascists have to make claims and then hide, right? Fascists never stick by their claims, they never prove anything, right? They just hide.
Someone else to blame instead of doing something about it. People who feel owed power and control and see the absence of that power and control as a humiliating insult. To be asked to earn power or privilege is a slap in the face. They should just have it because.
So this goes into disability. So people that are disabled ask for privileges because they don't have them. So yeah, if someone's disabled and they can't work and they're asking for health care, you think that it's not owed to them. You don't think that equality matters, because if you're not for lifting up the disabled, then you're not for equality by definition. You're for inequality. Let's see here. Let's start over. Let's see, 103.
Out because despite being correct,
Despite being hypocritical as always. So prove it. It's ideological that's ideological narcissism, right? Oh, I'm always wrong. Like I'm always right, or I'm always right, right? I'm correct as usual, right? That's like such a narcissistic thing to say. That's narcissism.
out because despite being correct as usual, deplatforming doesn't make sense as a strategy anymore. You can't deny them a platform. They already have all of the
Unless you commit an opt to smear someone so that no one visits their channel and shit like that, you smear lies and falsities about someone's ethics in games that you mention, and you bastardize what recursion is. You don't even know the definition of recursion. That's a form of deplatforming. That's cancel culture. You're literally for what the right always complains about, cancel culture. You're for cancel culture.
make sense as a strategy anymore. You can't deny them a platform. They already have all of the platforms, but you still can't treat their murderous ideology.
So he's comparing me and my framework to murderous. You're the one raping cows for fun, dude. That's pretty weird. It's pretty weird to rape cows. Why do you do that? For fun. When you don't have to. You don't have to. You're not poor. You're not struggling. You're not a survivor. So why are you murdering for fun?
Their murderous ideology and resultant murderous actions as though they are normal, something to be expected or worse, tolerated. They're not normal. They're what social scientists call fucked up Nazi bullshit. So, how do we speak back to fascism without giving fascists the attention and
So cancel culture. So anti-fascist fascism. Fascism is fascism. Just because you identify as anti-fascist doesn't mean you're not a fascist. It just means you're a fascist in denial.
legitimacy they want? That's the question I've set for myself today. And make no mistake, it is a small potatoes question in the grand scheme of anti fascist resistance. The real work is obviously community support, civil disobedience, armed resistance.
Arms to resistance. That's a call for revolution. That's illegal. Making a call for armed revolution, resistance, that's, I'm pretty sure that's like terrorism or something.
Civil disobedience, armed resistance, and a bunch of boring care work that nobody thinks about. But I can't help you with that.
That nobody cares about, right? He's repeating the nobody op. So, yes, I care as a caretaker. You don't, admittedly, by targeting me, a caretaker. Moron, I thought you were the chosen one, right? I thought you were the chosen one. I thought you were the chosen one. You think so highly of yourself, like just so narcissistic.
I'm a moron, but that means I know how
That means you don't know how to think. That's a cell phone. That means you don't know how to think.
That means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside. I genuinely don't think most people understand either. And that fact, if not corrected, might kill us all, so it's kind of important. Here's the thing about fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely need to understand before we can proceed. Fascists the attention and legitimacy they want? That's the question I've set for myself today. And make no mistake, it is a small potatoes question in the grand scheme of anti-fascist resistance. The real work is, obviously, community support, civil disobedience, armed resistance, and a bunch of boring care work that nobody thinks about. But I can't help you with that. I'm a moron. But that means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside. You see, I do have a very broad answer to the question I posed, that stuff I just said about how we talk back to fascism without giving them legitimacy. But before I can explain it to you, we have to lay some groundwork. We have to understand how fascists argue and how come they does do it that way. I genuinely don't think most people understand either. And that fact, if not corrected, might kill us all, so it's kind of important. Here's the thing about fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely need to understand before we can proceed. They're losers.
Let's see, that's 209, 239, 55.
That means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside. I genuinely don't think most people understand either.
Like how you're anti-vegan and ignore empirical data easy to find.
And that fact, if not corrected,
202.
might kill us all, so it's kind of important. Here's the thing about fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely...
Absolutism. Absolutism. That's what fascists use, is absolutism. So why are you using the same tools as a fascist? Absolutism is reserved for fascism. Is reserved for fascist. Absolutism doesn't allow exceptions, and there are exceptions to everything. It's called an outlier. Just like someone that can't afford to be vegan isn't expected to go vegan. It's an outlier, right? Not everyone is supposed to be an absolute vegan, right? Veganism isn't absolutely possible by everyone. Like when you speak in absolutes, you lose credibility. And he asserts by association, I'm absolutely a fascist by using absolutism.
Fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely need to understand before we can proceed.
I don't know if I'd call a millionaire a loser. Like, his definition of loser is pretty weird. But yeah, he's calling me a loser because I'm neurodivergent and I'm disabled. So calling a disabled person a loser is like a form of hate speech, right? So, yeah.
They're losers.
And I mean, this is hate speech. This is memetic hate speech. It's directly targeting me, and then it harasses me over disabilities. When you're attacking someone on their disabilities, their traits, that's a form of discrimination. That's bigotry.
Everyone else either has too great a critical thinking skill.
Not many people have critical thinking skills. If you look at how the election turned out, the majority voted for Trump, so that tells you that the majority doesn't have critical thinking skills. There's objective facts that most people don't have critical thinking skills, because if most people had critical thinking skills, we wouldn't have gotten Trump for president. So people with disabilities should be labeled with fascism. So if someone's disabled and they don't have good critical thinking skills, they're a loser. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Thinking skill or too much self-respect to become a fascist. To quote Hannah Arendt, totalitarianism in power invariably replaces all first-rate talent.
And this is meritocracy, which a meritocracy is fascistic in nature. A meritocracy is fascist because it places value in the work one can do, but if someone's disabled, then they can't work. So then it means that a disabled person is entitled and is owed nothing, right? They're just thrown under the bus. Like, so it's fascism, right? Meritocracy is a fascist framework because it values in what you can do, and if you're disabled, then there's more you can't do than you can do, and so your value is then diminished just because you're disabled. So what you're doing to me, because I have many barriers you refuse to believe people suffer from. So like my barriers for executive dysfunction and like ADHD and general neurodivergence. Um, so so yeah, so like he's also mentioning rabbit holes. So if I guess I have to show you this. Let's see, where is it? Arg. Let's see here. Studio mode. So right here. So this is what he's talking about. This is a direct reference to me. So rabbit holes. He's directly referencing me just without naming. So he's talking about me. So the whole video is essentially about me besides the other people he names. So every claim he makes about fascism, he's committing defamation of me. He's harassing me and on disabilities, mind you. So because I like autism, like because I have autism and I like learning through games. Like I had rabbits that you click and they take you through rabbit holes, and the symbols have like meanings. Like the mantra vidya is basically a corpus. You could think of it as a game manual. And so the snake is Ouroboros, so it means you're supposed to read that and then come back to here and then read more. And then after you read the mantra vidya and you come back, you have more information to go on. So every time you return to the start, you have more information, more connections to make. It's literally a mind map. It's literally just a mind map. And I don't know why he's against trans rights, but yeah, he's by doing this, he's against trans rights because that's one of the rabbit holes, right? One of the rabbit holes is trans rights. Ardashvanara. Ardhanashivara. So this is like the first like intersex deity. So this is LGBTQ rights. So he's insulting LGBTQ rights as consequence. That's something a fascist does. So yeah, it's see, it was an ARRPG, and like it had videos, like yeah. Anyways, so that's how he's directly referencing me and mentioning me. Okay, back to timestamps. Get chosen one, scapegoated 242.
Regardless of their sympathies with those crackpots and fools whose lack of intelligence and creativity.
So this is what I'm talking about. He's describing a meritocracy. So if you're disabled, you don't have first-rate talents by definition. If you're disabled, right? If you have disabilities, you don't typically have first-rate talents. So he's calling disability a lack of intelligence and creativity. He's smearing disability rights.
Is still the best guarantee of their loyalty. Only losers become fascists. This is not a judgment, merely a statement of fact. To become a fascist is merely one symptom of an underlying spiritual loserness. Because when you really boil it down to its core, it is a movement of woe is me crybabies. People with some sort of gripe who are desperate to find someone else to blame instead of doing something about it.
Like what you're doing to me, speaking about who I speak about empirical ethics like veganism and climate change, right? So let's go to the climate clock, because I'm going to need to put this in the video anyways. Close CapCut. Okay, let's go here. So there's 3 years left on the climate clock, and he's for accelerationism because he calls veganism and climate change a non-important rabbit hole. He also
People who feel owed power and control and see the absence of that power and control as a humiliating insult. To be asked to earn power or privilege is a slap in the face. They should.
So yeah, disabled people should just be given privileges. The very definition of being disabled means a lack of privileges. So if you're disabled, you lack privileges, and that's not your fault, right? You shouldn't be punished for being disabled. And what he's talking about is basically disabled people. So if disabled people want privileges, they shouldn't be handed privileges. They should have to earn it, even though they're disabled and they might not be able to earn it. You see what I'm saying? It's fascist.
They just have it because they're daddy's special boy, the best, most masterest race, or power and control as a humiliating insult. To be asked to earn power or privilege, we're desperate to find some symptom of an underlying whose lack of intelligence and creativity is still the best guarantee of their loyalty. Only losers become fascists. This is not a judgment, merely a statement of fact. To become a fascist is merely one symptom of an underlying spiritual loserness. Because when you really boil it down to its core, it is a movement of
Take timestamp.
woe is me crybabies. People with some sort of gripe who are desperate to find someone else to blame instead of doing something about it.
So if you're disabled, what are you supposed to do? If you're disabled, you can't protest. If you're disabled, sometimes the only thing you can do is just like make a post on Blue Sky or Twitter. Like if you're disabled, that's all. And that's all you can do. Like he's against that. It's privilege blindness. So you find empirical statements like if you're not a vegan, you support climate extinction insulting. So you're the one acting on beliefs, not facts. Because again, he says that you don't have to prove someone's a fascist. You just have to arbitrarily decide they're a fascist, and then you don't ever have to do
People
diligence.
who feel owed power and control and see the absence of that power and control as a humiliating insult.
It is a humiliating insult. Being disabled and lacking privileges is a humiliating insult. Are you fucking kidding me? Like he literally insults disability right here. I did it and sat down, wrote a short script without going down any rabbit holes. So he's insulting disability, autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, any barrier that prevents you from just sitting down and doing it. He's insulting. He's directly insulting.
To be asked to earn power or privilege is a slap in the face. They should just have it because they're daddy's special boy.
So that's anti-disability rights. So you're against people with barriers that your privilege creates inequality for yourself. So his privileges create inequality. And he's upset because he doesn't want to sacrifice his privileges to create equality. To create equality, you have to give people privileges that can't naturally earn them. Otherwise, you're for eugenics. So I guess he's for eugenics too, on top of everything else.
The best, most masterest race, or the smartest, most enlightenedest civilization, or they're the good religion that God likes. Sometimes, by sheer coincidence, their grievances happen to be legitimate.
But that doesn't matter because the means the means outweigh the ends justify the means.
grievances happen. Likes sometimes.
So he says that grievances are sometimes actually true, but then he later says that you shouldn't do anything more than a cursory glance. So how are you to determine who's a fascist if this person is telling you to not use critical thinking, to not do due diligence? But you can't tell because you're against fact-checking your own emissions. He's against fact-checking, as he admits.
By sheer coincidence, their grievances happen to be legitimate, just directed towards the wrong target.
Exactly what he's doing to me. He's doing the work of fascist for fascists while claiming to be an anti-fascist. He's repeating a 4chan memetic op.
Granting them an easily manipulated audience willing to do violence on their behalf is a fun little bonus.
Oh yeah, let's go into the death threats that he's partly responsible for. Oh, it's not that one. Where's Bored Ape? Bored Ape Yacht Club. Here it is. So like I already have this on the website. I've already broken this down. Like I've already proven it. So he's responsible for these death threats partly because he's gotten his 400,000 subscribers to believe that I'm a fascist without proof, without due diligence, without critical thinking skills. Very, very unethical. And so I'm in the crossfire and he's doing it. And if I talk about it, he blocks me, right? If I do anything about it, he just blocks and runs and hides, right? Because he doesn't want to be responsible. He can't, he's incapable of being real honest, like with a spine. But I'd rather die not being a Nazi than being one harassing disabled people. That's the difference between us.
Mostly, their grievances are entirely frivolous. That they have to accept school integration, or that their grievances are entirely frivolous. That they have to granting them an easily manipulated audience willing to do violence on their behalf is a fun little bonus.
Violence on their behalf? You mean like the death threats that are there on because of you on your behalf? You mean like that? That's a death threat, dude. That's a fucking death threat. You're responsible. You're culpable. Like, you've spread disinformation about me, just denaming me. Like, if there is a person in a wheelchair and he's the only person in a wheelchair in an office and everyone talks about that one person in a wheelchair but they don't name him, do you think that's not a form of harassment? If the person in the wheelchair hears them talking about wheelchairs or the person in the wheelchair just without naming, they know who they're talking about. Everyone knows who they're talking about. It's the person in the wheelchair. So you don't have to name to commit defamation, harassment, and death threats and a whole bunch of other stuff. You don't have to name someone. You just have to describe them.
Mostly, their grievances are entirely frivolous. That they have to accept school integration, or that their grandkids are trans, or that a woman might have sex without being punished for it. The oppression they believe themselves to be
C330. Belief. Right, so you don't have to prove someone's a fascist, you just have to believe it. So it mirrors how you believe me a fascist without actually proving it, right? Because if you name someone, then you have to prove yourself. So by denaming it creates plausible deniability, which is what every fascist lives off of, right? Fascists live off of plausible deniability. That's why these people don't name me, but they they'll describe my framework. They'll say ethics in games, which is what I showed you. My ARG was a game and it was ethics. It taught LGBTQ ethics. LGBTQ rights is a form of ethics. LGBTQ rights is a form of ethics. It's a branch of ethics. So yes, I teach ethics in games. Nothing polite about hate and discrimination. He wants to talk about hate, but let's talk about this. That's pretty hateful. That's pretty hateful, harassing someone over disability. That's pretty hateful.
Have sex without being punished for it. The oppression they believe themselves to be facing is simply that their prejudices have fallen out of fashion, that people get mad at them when they're shitty, or that they can no longer out loud proclaim their perceived superiority to some minority group without politely being asked to leave the Olive Garden.
Oh, you mean like how you're asserting your superiority over me, right? Oh, I can just sit down and write a short script and without going down any rabbit holes. I don't have ADHD. I don't have disabilities. I don't have trauma illnesses, right? I don't have CPTSD. So it's just easy for me to sit down. I must be the chosen one. That's, wow. That's literally what you're doing. That's hateful and discrimination. That's exactly what you're doing. And like a fascist, he blocked me for saying ableist. I said ableist and memetic warfare. That's all I said, and he blocked me. That's when you know you're right. They know they're wrong. Like, they know what they were doing. Like, they planned this all out. Like, they built a bridge of plausible deniability and just burned it after themselves. It is cruel and thoughtless.
Proclaim their perceived superiority to some minority group without politely being asked to leave the Olive Garden. That is the sum total of their ambitions, permission to be cruel and thoughtless. And they don't care who they have to kill to get it.
Right? They don't care who they have to kill to get it. Let's see, pin. They don't care who they have to kill to get it, right? You know? And he also used memetic warfare by giving Elon Musk those glasses with the bullet in it. He gave Elon Musk, in the thumbnail, he gave Elon Musk glasses with a bullet in it. That's memetic warfare. That ties to this death threat. They put glasses on me. I censored the photo, but they put they like photoshopped these glasses onto me. And that's like something that like the nobody op like do. Like, I've actually found a lot of people with a similar purple pink tinted glasses, like a lot, like a suspicious amount, as if I'm not the only person they did it to.
Because they're weird, fucked up losers with stupid, miserable priorities.
So advocating for climate change is a stupid, miserable priority. But being in acceleration isn't. So harassing disabled people, that's not a miserable... Only a loser harasses disabled people and uses memetic warfare. Again, with disabled equals loser. So different equals weird. That's fear and hate. So if you're disabled, to him, you're a loser, right? Because of the meritocratic argument he was stating. He was stating that if you have to ask for privileges, you don't deserve them. So if you're disabled and you ask for like healthcare, because healthcare is a privilege. If you have healthcare, you're privileged, because many people don't have healthcare. So if you ask for healthcare, you're a miserable loser. That's fucked up. That's really fucked up.
Ambitions, permission to be cruel and thoughtless. And they don't care who they have to kill to get it, because they're weird, fucked up losers with stupid, miserable priorities. Fascism always requires
Right. If it wasn't me that they were doing this to, they'd be doing it to someone else, right? They just need an excuse to control and bully other people to deplatform them and try to ruin their life, hurt their livelihood. Like, I can prove that he's hurt my livelihood. You mean how you singled me out without naming and dehumanizing and gaslighting for no reason? No reason because you refused to name one, right? No reason because you refused to name one. So, like, if I wasn't the enemy, it would just be some other disabled autist that was teaching ethics and learning and trying to have fun learning, right? I think it was Einstein that said play is like the greatest source of education or whatever. Play is the highest form of education, right? And that's what I did with my arc. I turned learning into a game, a non-linear game.
Miserable priorities. Fascism always requires an enemy, an opponent who they can imagine has perverted the natural order in which they are on top. When it's not immediately clear who that enemy might be, they're happy to just make one up or blame some outgroup they already didn't like, often, though not always, Jews.
Or the disabled, right? The disabled. That's exactly what he's doing to me.
Just need an enemy because fascism is a movement of people who are unhappy but who are
Remember, it's always the disabled people that fascists like this go after. It's always the disabled first. First they go because even gay, trans people are can be bigoted against disability. Like, just because you're gay doesn't mean that you can't be a bigot. Just because you are a racial minority doesn't mean that you yourself can't be racist, right? So you could be a racial minority and then be racist against other minorities. It's kind of an oxymoron, but that's the state that we live in. Discrimination. Like, I don't know what it is with these people, why they hate the disabled so much, why they hate caretakers. It's pretty disgusting, like, and they have like no excuse for it, right? They have no leg to stand on. That's why they avoid me.
often, though not always, Jews. Fascists need an enemy because fascism is a movement of people who are unhappy but who are also deeply unwilling to investigate why or often, though not always, Jews. Fascists need an enemy because fascism
Can I post that there? Oh, that worked. Did that work? Oh, it worked.
is a movement of people who are unhappy but who are also deeply unwilling to investigate why or change anything about themselves or their lifestyle. They
Right? That's literally him. You mean like you, who did a cursory glance, decided recursive thinking is made up without searching what recursive ethics is first? How you anti-vegans refuse to do anything but attack the people who are doing something, right? You're supporting accelerationism, like you're supporting fascists in your actions, not just your word, not just your ideology, your violent ideology, your calls to physical violence and calls to a call to arms. That's pretty violent. I've never made a call to arms. I've never incited physical violence on another person.
are perfect as they are.
Right? He doesn't have to change. He's already perfect as he is. Why would he need to go vegan? Why would he need to learn ethics? He's completely perfect, right? The only people that attack ethics are people that don't want to admit that they're wrong, because if you admit that you're wrong, that means you have to do something about it, logically. So explain why you consider yourself the 4chan chosen one using the meme just like you say fascists use. So he talks about how fascists use meme. Oh, it's just a meme. It's just a game, right? But then here he is using memes, using memetic warfare. It's discrimination, right? It's not just a meme. It's memetic warfare, which means it's racist and fascist in nature.
or their lifestyle. They are perfect as they are. They always have been. Things used to make sense when they, or people like them, were in control, or they perceived people like that to be in control. So the world must change back to
Right, that's why he's against veganism, because it would require him to change himself, and he's perfect as he is. Like, he doesn't perceive himself as needing improvement. And those are always the people that you should look out for, that you should always be on the look for. You should always be on the look for people that tell you how to think, right? If someone's telling you how to think, chances are they're setting you up for something, because if someone's going to tell you how to think, it should be deep research, like what I do. It should be deep research, and you should put a lot of time into it. Because if you put no time into something, then you're not taking it serious. You're not taking something serious. But yeah, you mean how you hate vegans who are doing more with their dietary choices than you do spreading hate and disinformation because you refuse to self-analyze.
or they perceived people like that to be in control. So the world must change back to that standard in order to oblige them. And
Right.
do you see how that belief, right? Do you see how the
So this is flashlighting. This is gaslighting on things I've never said. So I never claimed perfection. I have an entire post pinned on the side of subreddit, which is in an archive that you can still look at, which you have stalked, otherwise you couldn't have known about my recursive ethics. I scaffolded from pre-existing ethics and logic, which you mislabel recursive as backwards in time intentionally. Right? He had to stalk me online to do this video, right? He had to stalk me online to know this memetic. He had to stalk my game, my R. He literally has stalked me. He's cyber stalked me, which is a crime. Cyber stalking is a crime. Whether he wants to admit it or not, he just wants to live in denial because that's
belief
easy
that like
and
they're
lazy.
perfect and the only reason they're not rightfully heralded as a superior being is because someone else fucked them over might appeal to like a great big loser.
Or someone that is disabled and is being silenced and called a fascist by association. Or a person that has been fucked over. So if someone's fucked over, someone was fucked over by someone, that doesn't mean that you should have an appropriate response to that. If someone fucks you over, you should just do nothing. You should just pretend it didn't happen, right? You shouldn't talk about it. So you mean how you're bastardizing everything I've said and warping it into something it's not, because you don't believe in investigation as it's a waste of time, his words. Let's see here. So no grasp on reality. This again goes into my arc. Because someone likes philosophy, because someone has an active imagination, because of autism or just general neurodivergence, that doesn't mean they have no grasp on reality. Just because someone starts an alternate reality game that teaches you real world skills doesn't mean they have no grasp on reality. Just because someone practices philosophy daily in their day-to-day lives, that actually practices philosophy and studies, like, oh, apparently if you're into philosophy you have no grasp on reality. If you're into veganism you have no grasp on reality. You mean like not being able to research ethics, veganism, and other climate ethics, or recursive logic. So more than one thing can't be true at the same time. Someone can't have disabilities and be abuse survivors and be right, right? You can't be fucked over and then justified, is what he's saying. You can't be fucked over and then justified and being pissed and shit like that. There is no response to being fucked over in their mind.
Reason they're not rightfully heralded as a superior being is because someone else fucked them over might appeal to like a great big loser, a fantasist without any grasp on reality, a mediocre person without anything to offer the world who can't emotionally process their inadequacies. And
So right there, that's emotionally process their inadequacies. So again, people on the spectrum process their emotions differently. This is again targeted hate speech against people with autism, against me. Um, I also have BPD and CPTSD, so I process my emotions differently than everyone else. That's not a character flaw, that's a result from systemic abuse and oppression, as I've been abused and oppressed my entire life by people like him, and physically too. Um, it's it's so disgusting how someone can be so hateful and evil. Like, he's evil. Like, only an evil person does all this, goes through this length.
need to find someone else to blame for why life didn't go their way, or they perceived people like that to be in control. So the world must change back to that standard in order to oblige them. And do you see how that belief, right? Do you see how the belief that like they're perfect and the only reason they're not rightfully heralded as a superior being is because someone else fucked them over might appeal to like a great big loser, a fantasy?
So outward consequences can affect your life. So if you lose your job and like go homeless, it's your fault, right? That's basically what he's saying.
Without any grasp on reality, a mediocre person without anything to offer the world who can't emotionally process their inadequacies.
So again, that's anti-disability. That's anti-disability rhetoric. Someone call the ADA, like seriously.
And need to find someone else to blame for why life didn't go their way?
So again, if you're like disabled and life didn't go your way, you have every right to be angry. Like, it's like saying there's no appropriate response to oppression, right? Oh, you're being oppressed, stop being emotional, right? Every narcissist and fascist ever is like, oh, you're just being narcissist, oh, you're just, or oh, you're just being emotional, you're just being a snowflake, right? To actual discrimination, right? People are allowed to respond aggressively to discrimination, rightfully so, right? It's like going back to the 1940s and then telling victims of the Nazis that it's their fault, right? It's their fault they're there. They're losers, and it's their fault they're there because they can't work. If they're disabled, they can't work. It's their fault. But I'll just keep talking about it. I'll just keep talking about it because it's all I can do. Like, right? I'm being oppressed by this person, so it's all I
It's
can do
not
is
that
keep
they're
talking
not good
about it.
enough to get what they want. It's because the whole world isn't fair.
So yes, if you're disabled, the whole world isn't fair. That's a false dichotomy or equivalence, right? Like, the whole world isn't fair for someone that's disabled. The whole world isn't fair for a disabled person. It's a false equivalence. Like, if you're disabled and you're lacking privileges, like, oh my god, let me go back.
Need to find someone else to blame for why life didn't go their way? It's not that they're not good enough to get what they want. It's because the whole world isn't fair.
So right, so this goes back into his meritocratic fascist ideology, and that everything has to be earned, which means that it's disability. So if you're disabled and you're unable to work a job, you don't deserve anything, according to this person. If you're disabled and unable to work a job, you don't deserve anything. You're just being petty.
Or rather, isn't unfair in their favor anymore, like it should be, even when they're inarguably successful, rich, and powerful beyond most people's wildest.
Like him with 400,000 subscribers, being a fascist.
Hypothetically, off the top of my head, I don't know, the richest man in the world, they just have such loser energy. They're bitter, unhappy, completely preoccupied with petty little grievances.
So again, he would call discrimination and hate speech petty. A petty grievance. A petty grievance. So he calls this a petty grievance, but that's him being petty. Like, that's pretty petty to do, right? To directly reference me without naming me, and then to say that I am the chosen one, which I never said, right? Which is why he doesn't name me, because then he'd have to prove it. And that, just like fascists, they leave the victim, and narcissists, they leave the victim to prove everything while they just deny everything, right? They just run and hide.
They're bitter, unhappy, completely preoccupied with petty little grievances, no matter how much wealth, power, and prestige they manage to.
What an evil thing to do.
They can't help it. They are losers. It is baked in. They can't change it. And it's critical that we understand this. I'm not saying this just to mock them. That's a side benefit. It's not hard to mock them. Look at them. It's very frustrating.
See, those are the glasses I was talking about. Like, that's very similar to the glasses that they photoshopped to me on my on the death threads. It's very similar to what they did. So, like, there's definitely a lot of correlations.
I've noticed this because you'll never beat them on effort. You have other things to do. You have to go to work, take care of your loved ones, enjoy your hobbies, and have sex. But they have nothing else.
And see, this is, again, like, the right, he's giving the right ammunition. He's playing into every stereotype that right-wingers have, where they say, oh, you should be gay, right? It can't be sex, right? Because gay sex is sex, right? Gay sex is sex. So it makes more sense to just say sex unless you're trying to push a gay ideology on other people. You're trying to say that, oh no, there's something wrong with you if you don't have gay sex. So it's discrimination against straight people. He's discriminating against straight people, against straight sex. So yeah, take care of your loved ones. That's something I do. The boring caretaking work that he directly referenced, where he directly referenced me without naming. Oh my god.
This is it for that.
And like, what's his definition of weird, right? His definition of weird is autism. Like, his definition of weird is autism. So he probably can't even define the definition, the distinction between normal and weird. Like, most people give the definition of normal as average, right? Like, the majority of people, like, you know, normal society would be like the average society, the average person, right? Because normal and weird are completely subjective and open for interpretation. You can perceive something weird and normal however you want. That doesn't mean it's the truth, right? There is no objective weird and objective normal. It's all subjective.
This is all they have.
And also, calling people with autism weird is like one of the oldest, like, fascist things to do.
Operate much like cults. When one joins them, they are at first overwhelmed with the appearance of validation and support. This is called love,
which I don't do. So he's now referencing my framework as a cult, which I don't love bomb. I actually go out of my way to not love bomb. I'm like anti-charismatic for that reason. Like, if you're not a vegan and like you're claiming to be like a socialist or something, I'm gonna call you out. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not gonna love bomb you. Like, please, the only person I love bomb is my cat.
This is called love bombing, and it's meant to endear you to them, to become dependent on them to meet your emotional needs. Then, that validation and support is gradually withheld in order to pressure the target into severing ties with the normie world. They drive away anyone outside of their hateful little bubble.
You mean like how you've done with me, right?
So their entire network of social...
Oh, normie world, there we go. So that's a term that autists use a lot, right? Normies. That's a term that autists use a lot. So there's more discrimination on neurodivergence again. So normie to him equals perfectly abled and privileged, not disabled. The same way you think the disabled are losers. The same way he thinks the disabled are losers.
To pressure the target into severing ties with the normie world. They drive away anyone outside of their hateful little bubble, so their entire network of social support depends on how useful they can.
Which is exactly what the left typically does. Is they'll criticize disabled people for not being able to protest. Like they'll make absolutist statements, just like every fascist. Like they'll say like, "Oh, stop posting on Twitter and Blue Sky. Like you're not making a difference. You're just wasting time." But it's like if you're disabled and all you can do is post on Blue Sky, you're invalidating other people's entire existence. Like how you and other fake leftists gatekeep activism, saying the disabled can't make posts since they are disabled and can't protest.
Work of social support depends on how useful they can be to the cause. It's the only way they can feel part of something anymore, because nobody else wants anything to do with them at this point. They start to question your loyalties. Maybe you're a plant trying to make them look bad.
You mean like this? You mean like this? Trying to make me look bad here and everywhere else online? Talking shit about me after you've blocked me so that I can't respond? Which is what every narcissist and every fascist does, right? Every narcissist and every fascist, they try to strip the victim's ability to speak. They try to cancel the victims, right? They don't want the victims, the person they're oppressing, to speak out about it, and they will do anything in their power to avoid facing responsibility for their fascist actions. They will do anything and everything to avoid responsibility. They will say things, block you after you see it and respond. They'll block you and then continue to keep spreading rumors and lies about you. They'll continue to keep making memes about you.
Losers don't do
So here again, he's calling disability losers because what's easy for him is hard for disabled people. And he thinks he only cares about the average person, right? He doesn't account for the disabled at all because he's anti-disability. He's a bigot. He's a really big bigot. He's a slimy bigot. So
anything to do with them at this point. They start to question your loyalties. Maybe you're a plant trying to make them look bad. Losers don't do difficult things.
So yes, it's difficult. Like when you're disabled, you have barriers. Everything is more difficult. Imagine telling a blind person that they're a loser because they have difficulty getting around. Right? What's easy for you, privileged, your life is entirely privileged. You've had a very easy life from what I can tell. You've had a very easy life with very little resistance or pushback in life. Like you've had very little pushback in life, right? People just agree with everything you say. And so that's why you start the video off by saying like, I'm always right, right? Like you said, I'm always right. I'm right as usual, right? At the very start of the video before even proving it. This might as well be a case study of narcissism. So yeah, the disabled are losers. You calling me a loser from a lack of biological privileges. What seems lazy requires way more effort than you probably put into. So because it takes someone more effort, they're a loser, basically.
They take the easy way out. Everything becomes filtered through this lens. Every action, every statement, every thought becomes an opportunity to signal their support for the cause.
Fucking pronouns!
Everything becomes part of this eternal struggle, a symptom of the rot at the core of society that they are meant to oppose, a chance for them to be visibly, loudly loyal to the in-group. society that they are meant to oppose, a chance for them to be visibly, loudly loyal to the in-group. What might feel like a very trivial matter to you is transformed in their mind into a
Did my obsidian crash? I think my obsidian crashed. Let me reopen obsidian then. Why is obsidian stalling? Why the fuck? Let me make sure it's killed from the task manager. Obsidian, no.
one of the early
Give it a minute to fully boot up. What the fuck? Is my note corrupted? My note might be corrupted. It happens whenever I go to timestamp. God damn it. Oh, wait. Now is not the time to do this to me, Obsidian. God damn it. Why is Obsidian so fucking clunky? There's no way Obsidian should be stalling on my computer. Let me just, I guess, wait a minute. See if it fixes itself. Okay, let's see if that fixes it. Why is Obsidian like acting like, oh my god. Why is Obsidian acting like this? Oh, something's definitely wrong. It's not showing the link. Oh, wait. Yeah, something's definitely wrong here. What the fuck? Damn, am I gonna have to reset from a backup?
One of the earliest hot takes I made on this channel about 6 years and 70 pounds ago was that one should not debate fascists. People did not like that I said this. They felt that I was being a stinky.
I might have to reset from a backup. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't
One of
know
the
what
earliest
happened.
hot takes I made on this
Yeah,
channel
something's
about
really
6
wrong
years.
with my Obsidian now. What the fuck? Something went terribly wrong with Obsidian. Fucking A. God damn it. I have to go through all this again. Are you fucking shitting me? Seems. Okay, I don't know what broke. I really don't know what broke. God damn it. Where did I leave off at? Fucking A. Right, 641.
Loyal to the in-group. What might feel like a very trivial matter to you is transformed in their mind into a life or death battle against their perceived enemy forces. But to them,
Perceived enemy forces, even so everything is perceived, right? So climate extinction. So there's 3 years left on the climate clock. This isn't a battle for life or death. You're saying climate change, the ending of all life on the planet, isn't a battle of life or death, isn't important, isn't supremely important. Like, that's what he's basically saying. Because that's what I talk about a lot, veganism. And in my ethics, I talk about climate change. And he's attacking my framework, so he's literally anti-vegan.
This is a battleground upon which the future of our entire culture, nay, humanity, hinges.
Oh, so I would say that humanity does hinge on climate change, hinge on climate change, because after 3 years and 181 days, climate change cannot be reverted. That's the tipping point. After the tipping point, that's the death of all life our extinction begins. Our extinction begins in 3 years. In 3 years, our extinction begins. I would call that pretty significant.
Which, of course, makes them very important. That makes their posts very important.
Right, so vegans that are talking about climate change, that like tell people to stop supporting corporations, like their posts aren't important, so there's nothing. So posts aren't important, then what about your post? What about your post? Your posts are important though, right? You have an exception. You have an ableist exception, right? You're the exception to he's the exception to everything. So everything applies to everyone else, just not him. Like a fascist or a narcissist or both. A fascistic narcissist. But a lot of narcissists are fascistic. You can be fascistic without being a fascist, though. I feel like that's a distinction most people don't make. So, let's see here. I think it was because I was posting it directly instead of copying and pasting it like this. I think that's why it fucked up. So 642. Good thing I made a backup. Good thing I made a backup. Like how you and yours don't care about climate extinction, a literal life or death battle for everything on the planet. It is a battleground for the fate of mankind. It is, because it is. Climate change is a battleground for the fate of all mankind.
Loyal to the in-group. What might feel like a very trivial matter to you is transformed in their mind into a life or death battle against their perceived enemy forces. But to them, this is a battleground upon which the future of our entire culture, nay, humanity, hinges. Which, of course, makes them very important. That makes their posts very important. It's not a waste of time, actually, Dad. They're fighting to save humanity from the bad guys by making posts.
So so he's talking about my posts with my ARG. He's someone here. He's talking about my posts with my ARG games and stuff. 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Oh, man. God, I fucking hate ThoughtSlime. I can't stand fascists. Alright, where was I?
By posting about video games, they are saving the world. They will spend as much time as is required because they have convinced themselves that the whole world is at stake and they have nothing but time. This totalizing attitude also just
So nothing but time. I've said the opposite. We have 4 years, 3. See, this is how old this was. This is so old that it says 4 years left. There's now 3 years left on the climate clock. There's 3 years left. So that's how old this is. This has been going on. This has been going on for quite a while. And also, my mom and I are sick and have less biological time than you, so you're literally wasting my time with the constant bullying. He's wasting my time. Right? He's fascist will waste your time. He's a fascist. He's wasting my time. He's forcing me to prove all this. It's disgusting.
justifies any measures they take against you.
Oh, you mean like how you discriminate against me on Blue Sky? How you use Nazi memetics from 4chan? Only a Nazi does memetics. Only a Nazis. Only a Nazi.
You, because if you're with the people trying to destroy the world, there's nothing that's too bad to do to you, up to and including murder and torture.
So, wow. So he's just like how you justify fucking discrimination. You're the murderer, dude. You're the murderer. You're committing eugenics. Like, that makes you the murderer. Not only that, like, not only are you for and committing eugenics and you're harassing disability and entire groups of disabilities, you're attacking entire groups of disability. Like, you're attacking groups. You're attacking groups. You're literally attacking groups. And you're murdering animals for your hedonistic pleasure, which is killing the earth, which is killing all life on the planet. You're literally consuming us to death with how gluttonous you are.
And they would murder and torture you. They do it right now, even, gleefully.
So again, he's associating me and my framework with being a murderer. Like how you're spreading disinformation that's stealing my livelihood. That's eugenics. Stealing a disabled person's livelihood is eugenics by definition.
Luckily for us, they're also cowards.
Yes, you are a coward. You are a coward. Keep hiding, coward.
They have to be, right? A brave person would simply confront their problem.
Right? They would confront their problems, not block a person that calls them out on their discrimination, right? That's something a coward does.
Instead of becoming a fascist about them.
Yeah, why have you become a fascist? Like, why are you a fascist? That's what I want to know is like, why do you hate disabled people so much? Like, why do you hate straight people so much? Right? Like, you literally hate straight people. You say that you should only have gay sex. Like, you hate straight people. So you hate straight people, you hate the disabled, you hate vegans, you're pro-climate change, you're an accelerationist. How are you any different from Elon Musk? Tell me, how are you any different from Elon Musk? You're not. The only difference between you and Elon Musk is that you're not neurodivergent and you're gay. That's the only difference. It's the only difference between you and Elon Musk.
They'll only resort to violence when they know for a fact that there's no threat to themselves.
Which is exactly why you dename me, which is what literal Nazis have done and continue to do historically and up to this point. The Nazis did this, and you're doing it now by denaming, by completely taking posts I've made, verbatim saying the same things I've made in the posts, which means that you stalked me. Which means that you stalked me because you couldn't you couldn't have looked up my game or anything without stalking me, but you didn't do due diligence. You just asserted that I'm wrong without even interacting with me. You didn't even interact with me. So you stalked my page, and then you're harassing and spreading disinformation about me. And you're denaming because it removes a it creates plausible deniability. You can say, well, I didn't name him. Well, if you rip off KFC and you steal their image, but it's a different name, do you think that's not like impersonation? Do you think that's not referencing them directly? Because I can tell you for a fact, if someone took the KFC logo and like the old dude and they made it just a little bit different and a different name, I guarantee you they'd be sued. Guarantee it.
Which is why it's critical we never allow them to get to that point. There should always be a threat to fascists should they try to.
And also, denaming is safe. Yeah, it's cancel culture anti-freedom, right? It's anti-freedom. It's cancel culture.
Do fascist shit. Until that time comes, they're content to just pester their enemies incessantly, try to make their lives miserable through.
So cancel yourself. Oh wait, you dictate reality, right? You dictate reality. No one else, you. Like how you're literally doing to me, forcing me to prove my existence, which is what a narcissist does. Which is what a fascist does. Only a fascist forces a person to prove all this, right? It's fascistic in nature. It's fascistic by design.
Through whatever petty little means they
The
can
fascism
manage.
is baked in.
The function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining.
Let's see here. Let's see. Hindering my life by spreading lies, hate, discrimination, and false misrepresentations. Dude, you're distracting me. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're wasting my time, and you're forcing me to explain everything over and over again. By design, that's why you dename me, is because so I would be forced to spend my time. So you're preemptive fascist. You planned it. You preemptively planned to be a fascist against one, like a specific person, not just Elon Musk, but the person you're specifically referencing, the framework, the words that you stole.
And the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining.
You're literally doing this to me, which is flashlighting. So, flashlighting is when you gaslight that someone's a fascist. So imagine you started a campaign like he's done, a disinformation campaign. Not misinformation, disinformation, as in intentional misinformation. So imagine you start a disinformation campaign and you tell people that you're a fascist, you hint that you're a fascist by assigning all these traits. If you're into ethics and games and you do this and you do that, or and you're a caretaker and you're all of the things that I am, that are describing traits of me. So that's fascisting. You're gaslighting that someone's a fascist without proving it, right? You're literally dictating, trying to overwrite reality. You're literally trying to play like a god. Like you're literally godlike in your head. Like you get to say who's a fascist. You tell people not to do anything more than a cursory glance, but you get to decide who's a fascist without doing the work, right? You don't have to prove someone's a fascist. You just dictate they're a fascist. And you leave them proving they're not a fascist. That's fascistic. Forcing someone to prove that they're not a fascist is what a Nazi does. That's literally like what a Nazi does. That's like forcing an atheist to prove that God doesn't exist, right? It's no different than like an atheist or a Christian trying to force an atheist to prove that there's not a God, like proving a negative, right? That's something a narcissist does, is forcing their victims to prove a negative.
Over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says you have no kingdoms, so you dredge that up. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. So you can't ever expect them to be reasonable, ever. They will die on every hill.
Like you.
They will argue about every little point of minutia forever. They will deny anything you say, no matter how absurd it seems to do so.
Like denying the memetics, right? So it's memes, right? It's a game, right? That's what you said that's what fascists say and do, and that's you're doing the thing that you're accusing other people of doing. Like you literally do the everything in the video without self-awareness.
They will assume the counterposition to every position you offer, play devil's advocate about everything, muddy the waters on every single fact, no matter how inconsequential or self-evident it may be.
Yeah, inconsequential or self-evident it may be, like climate change, the fate of all mankind.
They'll just deny it pointlessly. Why bother? We can see him doing it, guys.
Right? He's just deny it, right? Just deny it.
What
So
are you talking
gaslight.
about?
He's basically
they
telling
can't
people to
possibly
gaslight.
mean it. Not even they could be that dumb. They are lying. Fascists lie.
Yes, you are a liar. You are a fascist. You're a lying fascist.
And this
Your lies
is
make
where
you
most
a
people get it
fascist.
wrong. Because they do, obviously. They lie, yes. They also believe their lies, sort of. Even when they know they're lying, they believe their lie.
Exactly like him, right? That's literally him. That's literally him. He believes his lies. I never said I was the chosen one. That's psychological manipulation, right? That's social engineering. Social engineering is unethical as fuck. So you're literally using social engineering to try to cancel someone that isn't even monetized, right? You're trying to silence someone that isn't even monetized, and you're diverting traffic away from them. That's hurting my livelihood. Like, I would love to put all this before like a lawyer or something. That'd be really cool.
Lies. Not because they're dumb, though, but for a far more insidious reason. What I think a lot of people fail to understand is that fascists view truth differently.
Let's see, 919. He does view truth differently. By his own words, he's not interested in the truth. One second. All right, back to let's see here. All right. Anyways, back to ThoughtSlime being a fascist. Okay, let's see.
View truth differently than regular people. From their perspective, and this is going to sound strange, but please bear with me, speaking a falsehood isn't necessarily lying. A statement can not reflect reality, but still be true to a fascist.
Like him. Like recursive can mean it's backwards even though it's not, right? He believes that recursion equals backwards.
You and I, when most people think of truth, we view it as more or less like that which accords with reality. Something is true if it matches what we see or experience or.
And that's exactly what I teach. That's what empiricism, consequentialism, veganism, and climate science is. That's naturalism, right? It's very like naturalism is very logical. It's natural. That's so that which accords to reality is empiricism, consequentialism, veganism, and climate change. That's what I teach. And let's bring up my website. I think I have a thing on consequentialism. The only non-hypocritical framework. Yes, here it is. I found it. So, like here, I teach about consequentialism even. There we go. All right, so yeah, I teach about consequentialism and animal agriculture. So consequentialism is not a belief, it's a logical necessity. It's the only ethics frameworks where actions are measured by real outcomes, not intentions, myths, or tribal values, right? Which is what he's talking about, mythic truth. Consequentialism is a mythic truth in his eyes. Accountability is enforced through causality, not subjective declarations. Causality. Like how he. Let's see here. Like how he is responsible for these death threats. Culpable. He has a hand in it. He's working for the people that did this this death threat right here. So as a consequence of his actions, this death threat made itself to me. By consequence of his actions. So moral alignment becomes falsifiable, meaning hypocrisy is no longer deniable through performative language, like memetic warfare. See the search to weaponize mental health and thus believe in ableism. Any person who claims to be good yet refuses to measure the harm caused by their actions is, by definition, a hypocrite. You cannot separate ethics from consequences without engaging in cognitive dissonance or worse, moral cowardice masquerading as comfort, which is literally ThoughtSlime to a T. Moral cowardice. And comfort. He does what's easy.
Can measure. I'm talking in very broad strokes here, obviously. It's not that simple. Like, we can't measure that you love your dog, for instance.
You can measure that you love your dog. For instance, if there's evidence you beat your dog, that's proof you don't love your dog, right? There we go. Bam. We just proved it. You can prove you love your dog. You can prove you love your dog. What are you talking about? Like, you can prove it every day, right? If you prove you don't love your dog, then you can prove that you love your dog, right?
But nonetheless, I accept it as true. Entire college courses could be taught on the philosophy of what is and is not truth, but fascists, like all authoritarians, do not view truth remotely like this. To their mind, truth is not dictated by reality. It's actually the opposite. It works the other way. Reality is dictated by
This is narcissistic realism, and he's basically describing himself, what he's done.
Their truth. Truth, or rather their idea of truth, is the foundation from which reality is built, and therefore nothing within reality could be invoked to contradict their truth. Reality is lesser. Reality is always changing. It's not dependable.
So this is a fallacy. Reality is always changing, right? Like, it's called time. Time changes everything fundamentally. Like, without time, there is no change. Like, equivocally, like, without time, there is no change. So, like, reality is changing. Like, the Earth is changing. Changing presidents or keeping a president, or, you know, if a president changes office, that's reality changing. Reality just changed. Someone that wasn't a president is now a president. Reality changed. So yes, reality is always changing. It's called the scientific method. You measure and you measure and you measure, right? If new data outs old data as bad data, then you test it and you prove it wrong and then you replace it. That's the scientific method. So he's literally the anti-scientific method.
Reality is the earthly and mundane, while their truth is eternal, a higher power. It is transcendent. It is of God. A fascist can view a statement as true even when acknowledging that it's also an outright falsehood. And that seems like a contradiction to you and I. Truth and falsehood are mutually exclusive, but to a fascist, the falsity is merely base reality.
Like how you deny responsibility for your actions while gaslighting reality as it's proven.
Which, remember, you can't count on. Truth transcends material reality. Truth is eternal and unchanging and not subject to reappraisal simply because reality contradicts it.
Simply because reality contradicts it. This contradicts what he says about, oh, it's memes, it's a game, right? This contradicts, reality contradicts him. And so what does he do when you show a fascist that reality contradicts what they've said and they continue to say?
That's why J.D. Vance can say with a straight face that it is true that Haitians were eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio, even if he concedes, of course,
or that recursion means backwards. It doesn't.
That it didn't actually happen. It's true, but that doesn't mean it happened. This is called the mythic truth, the truth which transcends reality.
See, now he's calling an objective fact, an objective truth as the mythic truth. So empiricism is a fact. Empiricism is a fact. It's a scientific fact, right? It uses the scientific method. Consequentialism is a fact. Consequentialism is an objective fact. Whether you believe in it or not does not change cause and effect. Without the Big Bang, there is no cause and effect. Cause and effect also allowed the Big Bang to happen. If you can wrap your head around that, it's sort of a paradox. And it's really philosophical. But yeah, so like the Big Bang created consequentialism because the Big Bang did this, then that happened, it led to evolution, right? That's consequentialism. That's an objective fact. If I let go of this lighter in mid-air, it's an objective fact that it'll fall due to gravity. That's not a mythic truth. That's an objective fact.
What that mythic truth represents is truer than true. The mythic truth simply is.
So he doesn't make the distinction between a subjective truth and an objective truth. He's calling an objective truth the mythic truth.
It need not be justified. It need not be proven. It cannot be falsified. It cannot be questioned.
Which is everything you can do with me. You can question me. If I'm wrong, you can prove me wrong. That's why everything's built on science, scientific method, and like consequentialism and other frameworks. Because those frameworks are like naturalist. So if I'm wrong, you can prove me wrong. Like if I'm wrong, you can prove me wrong. And if you prove me wrong, I will admit I'm wrong, and then I will update my understanding like a reasonable person. But what he's doing isn't reasonable.
It is fixed, unchanging. It has always been thus, and so it will always be thus. The mythic truth in the minds of a fascist has been discovered over and over throughout history, embraced, leading to all of the great civilizations of the past, and then suppressed, leading to those civilizations' downfall. Fascism is syncretic. It takes ideas and concepts from multiple sources and tries to synthesize them into a broad, sweeping set of principles that they can apply backwards in time. To question.
So what he's talking about is what I've done with my framework, applying consequentialism, empiricism, veganism, and then using recursion. When he says backwards in times, he means recursion, which is in this video right here. Oh wait, let's see, scav. Actually, let's use Sartre. Okay, no, that's in shorts. So it's called scaffolding. There's a name for it. He doesn't know this because he's dishonest as fuck and he doesn't believe in due diligence. Did you know that Sartre didn't invent anything? He took ideas from other frameworks from other people and then changed it so that it was so much different. It didn't recognize it wasn't the same. So he scaffolded. Oh, I can't fucking watch it in here because it's not enabled. Let's see here. Add embedding. Allow embedding is on. That's weird. Let's just go to the browser, I guess.
All right.
Let's see here.
Since there's a lot of confusion between hypersanity, the concept, like the canonical concept, and my framework, the hypersane framework, I want to start by explaining what Sartre did, because Sartre did the exact same thing. Sartre took something that existed and then made it his own. He scaffolded it into his own metaphysical skyscraper. So before I get to the hypersanity part, allow me to proceed. Jean-Paul Sartre engaged in a kind of intellectual scaffolding, adapting and transforming earlier philosophical ideas, especially from Heidegger, Husserl, and Hegel, rather than copying in a plagiaristic sense. He was a synthesizer who reworked concepts to serve his existentialist goals. Sartre did not plagiarize, but rather adapted and recontextualized the ideas of others into a new existential framework. He practiced philosophical engineering, scaffolding from deep foundations to build his own metaphysical skyscraper. So imagine you buy a building and then you completely change it to where it's no longer the original building. That's scaffolding. That's literal scaffolding. Sartre was deeply influenced by Martin Heidegger's Being and Time. He borrowed core ideas like being in the real world, Dasein, transformed into being for itself, être pour soi, and in being itself, être in soi. Thrownness appears as the facticity of existence. However, Sartre secularized and pathologized Heidegger's ontological project, removing the transcendental concern and rooting it in radical freedom and anguish. So that's exactly what I've done, is I've made it more ontological than spiritual. It's nothing spiritual about it. Husserl's phenomenology forms the technical backbone of being and nothingness. Intentionality, epoch, and the phenomenological reduction are all present. Sartre expands Husserl's egoless consciousness into a theory of subjectivity with consciousness as last. Sartre scaffolded Husserl's method to explore consciousness not as a structure, but as freedom in the face of nothingness. Sartre and Hegel. Sartre rewrites the master-slave dialectic from the phenomenology of the spirit into his own theory of the look, le regard, and conflictual intersubjectivity. Where Hegel sees eventual synthesis, Sartre sees perpetual conflict. Hell is other people. Sartre's scaffolding approach. Sartre rarely invented philosophical tools from scratch. He didn't invent anything from scratch. He built frameworks using Husserl's method, Heidegger's ontology, and Hegel's dialectic. The same way that I use Vedic, Gnostic, and perennial philosophy to explain even things.
So yeah, as you can see, Sartre did what he's saying. He's Sartre did what he said fascists are doing. What fascists do. They take ideas from other things and then they make it their own. That's not That's not exclusive to fascism. It's been done for millennia since before the Nazis. Scaffolding has been done for millennia since the beginning of time. People have scaffolded other people's works and then turned it into their own. A lot of philosophers just scaffold instead of just inventing from scratch.
The mythic truth is therefore, in their minds, not simply a matter of disagreement, but to defy the will of nature, to stand in opposition to what they see as the animating force of the universe.
So yeah, naturalism is the animating force of the universe.
To invite the fall of civilization, causing humanity to backslide into barbarism.
Like what you're doing. You mean like this barbarism? You mean like this barbarism? This anti-disability barbarism?
So anything which contradicts the mythic truth is fundamentally evil and must be rejected on that basis and that basis alone. When evidence...
So if you're arguing for an empirical objective fact, and you're willing to die on the empirical objective fact, that makes you a fascist, apparently. Apparently. So, yeah.
Evidence contradicts the mythic truth, the evidence is lying. You don't need to know how it's lying, what about it is incorrect, or if anything about it is incorrect. You simply know the evidence must be wrong because it can't be correct and contradict the mythic truth. When the mythic truth is shown to be contradictory or self-defeating, they will insist without a shred of...
Just like how you can't prove me wrong, so you say I'm wrong and then use 4chan memes to misrepresent and spread disinformation and harassment my way, without a shred of irony that you're doing the work of fascists for them, without a shred of irony, or a bone in your body that has shame.
Of irony that logic itself is therefore lying. They won't bother trying to explain away the contradictions because it is an act of service to the mythic truth.
To his mythic truth, right.
Truth, the highest good, to simply accept it on faith, particularly when reason would dictate otherwise. If anything which contradicts the mythic truth is evil, then dismissing it is an act of good. So by willfully ignoring evidence or arguments against the mythic truth,
right, like what I'm doing, ignoring evidence, right? So when someone proves you wrong, you just ignore the evidence. He's giving you a guide on how to be a fascist. This is a literal guide. His video is a guide on how to be a fascist.
They show their devotion to it. Therefore, they can cognitive dissonance their way into accepting evidence against their position as further reason to accept that position.
Exactly. That goes right in here with this. You prove that he's being ableist, and then he blocks you, right? Not even a denial. He knows he's being discriminate. He knows it was ableism. That's why he blocked me.
Their truth is so strong that it doesn't matter if it seems incorrect, it's still true. And let me say that again for emphasis. Evidence against a fascist position strengthens the fascist's belief in that position.
Exactly. That's literally him. He believes everything he says. He's cognitive distanced himself into fascism. He's an anti-fascist fascist. Like how I'm proving that you're doing the thing you accuse me of doing without good faith.
You might just be a stupid asshole, but it is a position of fascist.
So you live by beliefs and how things seem instead of using the scientific method.
Would hold and argue strenuously for. It is also a position that is dumb as hell. Rocks for brain shit, like get a grip. There's no evidence for this position. How could there be? It can't be falsified. How do you prove your subjective experience of gender is right or wrong? Are the millions of gender nonconforming people all throughout history lying, all willing to subject themselves?
There's no evidence that I'm a fascist, but you will invent ways after the fact. Post hoc rationalization. Fascist rationalization.
To persecution and violence for no reason?
Yeah, for literally no reason. Like, why are you spreading disinformation that leads to death threats, dude? Like, you're responsible. Grow a fucking spine.
Other than to maintain this fiction? Why? Does that sound credible? Are we to
yeah, does this sound credible? Does discrimination and discriminatory memes sound credible to you?
dismiss their stated subjective experience?
You mean like how you don't believe I'm disabled and a caretaker, even though I've proven it and have said the same things for multiple years on YouTube and elsewhere? You mean like that? The information that's available that you tell people not to look up, because if they look it up, they'll find out you're lying. If anyone investigates this, they'll easily be able to tell you're lying.
And if so, what evidence do we accept in its place? Because to my knowledge, none of these dipshits has ever offered any. There is
Right, he's never offered a framework. He's never offered any equality, right? He doesn't offer any tools for equality. He doesn't offer tools that teach critical thinking. He doesn't offer tools that teach disability rights and ethics. He doesn't teach ethics. He doesn't give you tools. He takes tools away. He literally takes your critical thinking tools away. It's a good thing I haven't done that, and I'm consistent. If someone proves me wrong, I correct myself and improve, unlike you, who just runs and hides.
contrast much evidence against this position.
You mean like neurological disorders that are diagnosed, like executive dysfunction, which you privileged, bragged, and rubbed in my face because you hate being held accountable for the things you accuse me and others of? You mean how my brain was assigned neurodivergent versus your biological privileges? Consistency, please.
The whole premise of a gender binary rests on the faulty assumption of a strict binary of biological sexes, which is both obviously incorrect and also completely irrelevant. Gender is not sex. I think we've been pretty clear on that, my guys. Not only are you
And philosophy is an imagination. Just because someone enjoys fantasy doesn't mean they live in fantasy, doesn't mean they're delusional. It's a false equivalence.
you dead ass wrong would not matter to the discussion if you happen to be correct. Belief in a bioessentialist gender binary is absurd. It's contradictory and dumb. It is obvious and self-evident that some people's idea of themselves do not align with the gender they were assigned at birth. How then do fascists arrive at this conclusion? Why do they feel so strongly about it? Why do they remain completely unmoved by evidence against it? Why
Yeah, because they have no spine, because they're cowards, right? Because they're cowards.
care at all for that matter? And you might say, well, duh, obviously. It's because they hate
Because they hate disabled people, right? ThoughtSlime hates
trans
disabled people.
And yes, I'm not a child. I understand that, but why though?
Really? Because that's a pretty childish thing to do. That's a pretty childish thing to do, to discriminate on disability, on autism, on executive dysfunction. That's a pretty childish thing to do.
Though, because if you were to ask them, they would say that their hatred of trans people is rooted in this belief, which of course they only believe because they hate trans people. So isn't that kind of circular? The reason they believe this, of course, is that fascists, among other assholes, believe men and women exist in strict natural hierarchy. Everyone does, but especially men and women.
Yeah, why does ableism matter less than gender, and you consider isn't important or just as harmful? Why do you think that trans are superior beings over the disabled? Yeah, why do you think trans lives are more important than the disabled? That's a good question. Why do you deem the disabled as losers? Why do you just deem people that are disabled not worth, have no value in life? That's your words. You believe in a meritocratic position. You argue for a meritocratic position. Meritocratic is anti-disability, right? Because if you can't work, then you have no value. So this person literally is saying that disabled people's lives have no value. It doesn't matter what they post. It doesn't matter what they say. You should dismiss someone just because they're disabled.
Anything which might complicate that dynamic is therefore automatically untrue. Men and women must be immutably and fundamentally separate categories if we are to believe one is superior to the other. If the differences between men and women are murkier than they imagine, socially constructed, or worse, subjective, then that contradicts their perfect, eternal, mythic truth. And anything which contradicts their perfect, eternal, mythic truth can simply be dismissed on that basis.
Right? Right? So everything he says can be dismissed because of that meme. His words.
It is not necessary to explain why or investigate further.
See, you don't need to investigate or do due diligence. This is where he's telling people not to think, not to do their research. contradicts your behaviors of demeaning disabilities as you attack someone's biology rather than their work, right? Because if he named me, and then he'd have to prove everything, right? And what is a fascist hate? Burden of proof. A fascist hates burden of proof.
If their reasoning can be shown to be wrong, and it always can, it doesn't matter. When you do manage to do a complete circuit and exhaust all of the bullshit they have prepared, they will always say some variation of the following. Well, it's just the truth. Deal with it.
So if that is the case, if it is the truth, and someone is just cognitive dissonance and like Dunning-Kruger and they just don't believe it, so you can never say, well, it is just the truth, deal with it, and it be the truth. So just because you say it's the truth and deal with it, you're a fascist. The fuck, dude? So many people say that and they're not fascists. He speaks in absolutes.
Because, of course, they know what's true already. They need not explain why. They need not justify it. It simply is so. You cannot reason them away from this position because their positions are above reason.
Exactly, above reason. Above reason. Like, there's no reason to specifically target me and use Nazi memetics.
Above evidence, above earthly logic. Furthermore, by an amazing coincidence, whatever they decide is true will always, always be whatever's most useful for their political project.
Oh, you mean like this political project? Whoops, this political project? I sat down and wrote a short script without going down any rabbit holes. I am the chosen one. You mean like that? How you're exploiting me for your project? You're exploiting the disabled. That's something a Nazi does. Not a
Just think
fascist,
about
a
it, right?
Nazi.
In their mind, they're battling for the future of civilization, and that's a pretty strong incentive to rationalize away whatever it takes to accomplish your goals. Would you want to believe that the evidence were stacked against what you saw as the only way to save civilization? And what?
Well, no, of course, he doesn't want to be vegan, right? So telling someone that they're not socialist because they're not vegan, which is an absolute truth. You can't be socialist without being on a plant-based diet because you're supporting the very corporations that you deem to be against, right? Socialism in part is like boycotting, essentially, right? Socialism is essentially boycotting. So you're boycotting animal agriculture. That's a true socialist. So he's anti-vegan. Project. Yes, vegans literally are "you're not provably so" by how you label veganism, ethics I practice despite having no income from as being disabled, and opinions as belief. You gaslight off the bat stating that it's their belief, but veganism is proven empirically by world-leading experts.
While, of course, they believe that their truth is perfect, unchanging, and eternal, they are all too happy to edit it on the fly when it suits their purposes, to will reality to bend to their whims by changing what is and has always been unerringly true. They don't.
So if you're proven wrong, you should never update your belief. If someone proves you wrong, you shouldn't update your understanding, right? You should just stay the same solid person that you are, right? You should never change. Changing is bad. Changing is bad.
Give a shit if this appears inconsistent to you. They will never acknowledge the consistency, and for all intents and purposes, might not even be able to perceive it. Just look how mad you are. Look how upset you got.
See? Exactly. That's what this was. This was this was baiting an emotional reaction. Look how upset I got. Exactly. He's a bully. He's a fascist. Okay, let's see. Where am I?
Perceive it. Just look how mad you are. Look how upset you got that I chose to believe a bad, wrong thing on purpose.
So how you're intentionally setting off my illnesses by gaslighting and not be honest, which you know you're doing, and then use that as an excuse to say it's perceived harm. I think they call that victim blaming.
Waste your time because they're losers with infinite time on their hands, and two, that the fascist.
So more ableism. Not everyone has the same biological lifespan. Some of us have life-threatening conditions with no health care because slimes exploit them and spread provable bullshit so they are dying. I think that's called eugenics.
Construction of truth is fundamentally irrational and therefore immune to rational criticism. Do you see why it is a bad idea to argue with them on their terms? Do you get it now? Do you see how they've already decided what they believe?
Yep. That's literally him. He's decided what he believes, and it doesn't matter. No amount of rational approach will ever reach him. He is not a reasonable person. He can't be reasoned with.
And their only goal is to distract and frustrate you forever? How
What he's doing to me?
if their whole goal is to waste your time with bad faith nonsense to deliberately frustrate and confuse you, how you don't need to let them do that.
You kind of do if you're telling people that someone's a fascist just without naming them, and repeating Nazi chant that threatened the FBI. By the way, it's pretty wild that you would align yourself with people that threaten to pipe bomb places. Like you've aligned yourself with people that have made actionable threats.
For the rest, whether or not we like to admit it, we tend to outsource our.
And this is memetics, right? So he criticizes memes and oh, it's a game, but he uses memes. He uses memetic warfare.
Critical thinking to the crowd. We base our view of truth on whatever people are saying at the moment. And if enough people say something, it seems credible to us because we're social animals.
Exactly. So that's Goebbels' big lie, basically. So it's outsourcing by popularity. This mirrors the big lie, how if you repeat a lie enough times, people believe it, and is what historic fascists have always done, and is literally what he's doing.
Why would so many people say something if there weren't some truth to it, if there weren't some good reason to believe it?
That's not true at all. People aren't all reasonable. Are you kidding me? We have, like, he doesn't seem to understand that the average person isn't reasonable. Like, the average person voted for Trump. Like, that's how we got an unreasonable presidency, right?
This is a cognitive bias that fascists love to exploit because the main resource they have is a bunch of people willing to talk endlessly, just in good faith.
Yeah, like him, in good faith. No proof to anything. Forces the victims to prove everything. Only a narcissist
Anyone
forces
watching
the
who
victim
isn't
to
inclined to look
prove
into the
that
matter
it
further
happened.
comes away thinking, I guess that's a thing people are talking about now. The more arguments they hear about it, the more normal it all becomes, and the more they subconsciously start to think, well, there's got to be something to what they're saying, right? By virtue of the fact that it is being discussed, it must therefore be worth discussing. You see, the danger here isn't that a fascist might be more persuasive than their opponent.
Actually, it is. When you have 400,000 subscribers and they believe everything you say, and you're calling someone a fascist, you're directly referencing them, their traits, their lifestyle, their beliefs, if you want to call science a belief, um, and consequentialism a belief, and all of that, which it's not. Consequentialism is an objective fact. Like, it's the truth. Deal with it. Like, it just is. Like, consequentialism is an empirical fact. Like, if you do this, that will happen. That's an empirical fact, right? If I drop a lighter, it will fall on something, right? And so, like, that's all it is. Like, his entire argument is charisma, and it's based on popularity. He's literally using his popularity to smear me.
I guess that's also a danger, but that's rarely the case because they're stinky losers with Dumbo ideas. They're easy to make look foolish because they're fools. The big danger is that most people will forget the contents of the argument entirely, of any argument, and simply remember that an argument took place, that two people argued this, and both seemed to believe what they were saying.
Except one can actually prove what they're saying and one cannot. One is just making baseless assertions and statements about other people and how and assigning disability traits to fascism.
And how should I know which of them is correct? Do you think they will remember any information or statistics cited in your
Exactly. Do you think he understands what recursive? He doesn't understand what recursive is. Recursive doesn't mean thinking backwards in time, real time. It doesn't mean thinking backwards. You're still going forwards. You're just analyzing the previous step to make the next step more concise. You're breaking it down into smaller chunks. You're still going forward. Like, he doesn't even understand what recursion
argument?
is.
Aren't you just as likely to remember lies and disinformation as the truth?
Yes, lies and disinformation. That's all he spreads.
Lies and disinformation, which are much more plentiful because there's really only one truth and you can make up as many lies as you want.
Yeah, you can make up as many lies as you want. I never said I was the chosen one. That's gaslighting. That's fashlighting. You're fucking gaslighting reality.
Remember, to them, it is absurd to base one's view of truth on reality. That's what weak people without convictions do. If you need evidence for your position, you're too soft. You're not a useful ally, because the minute reality contradicts your position, which it might do at any moment because it's always changing, you'll abandon it.
Yep, you'll abandon it, right? See? Ableism contradicted what he was saying, so he blocked me.
Why, therefore, would they ever engage in good faith argumentation? What could they gain from that? It is us, it is their enemy who takes advantage of evidence and logic. It is incumbent on a fascist to delegitimize both. Access to
which is what he's done, right? He tells people to not do due diligence, to not do research, but
information only
how do you
ever
determine
hurts
that?
their position. It is their prerogative to make sure people remain ignorant.
Exactly what he wants, right? By censoring me, by deplatforming me, by using cancel culture.
Only an ignorant person would believe them. So they don't argue to convince people, to inform, or even misinform. If they do, that's a bonus. They argue to obstruct.
Which is exactly what he's
doing. You understand this, right? They argue not just to win the argument, but to delegitimize the process by which one might investigate truth, to make it impossible to tell.
By delegitimizing how you come to truth. And that's exactly what he's done. He's given you a process to not critically think, right? You don't have to do anything more than a cursory glance. Well, you're telling people not to critically think. So you're making it impossible for people to determine on their own what is and what isn't. You're basically running a cult.
Which positions are and are not supported by evidence. They want to confuse, not educate.
Exactly, confuse, not educate. See?
They cannot lose an argument because their strategy was never to win the argument.
Yeah, see, his strategy was never to win the argument. It was to waste my time and make me look like I'm crazy or something, because that's what Nazis do, right? They dismiss, and it's just like how women are discriminated against, how sexist men or narcissists will tell a woman that she's being too emotional or she's being hysterical, right? It's an easy way to dismiss someone.
The strategy was merely to have an argument. That's why it's really fucking frustrating to see people gloat about defeating them rhetorically as though that matters. Like it's some great victory to be more persuasive than the guy who thinks being gay is a form of witchcraft.
Yeah, it's weird that you fall into that category.
What a genius you must be to defeat that intellectual titan. They don't care. They're not trying to win an argument. In fact, I'm not sure it would be as useful for them if they did, because they want the argument to happen forever.
Exactly. He wants this to happen forever, right? This is by his design.
If they won and convinced us, everybody would stop talking about it. They want to keep the question open to maintain the pretense that this is a matter of legitimate disagreement.
Right. So he's automatically telling you to delegitimize your opponent if you think they're a fascist. Don't do due diligence. So then, how do you come to the assumption that someone is a fascist? A meritocratic position. So if they're disabled, they're a fascist. If they're autistic, they're a fascist. If they do something you don't understand and you perceive them as weird, they're a fascist. Like, he assigns all these traits to fascism.
That there are persuasive arguments to support either position, that their arbitrary, frivolous conclusions should be treated with the same weight as everyone else's, and in so doing, become something you might not agree with, but must accept as a valid position that others hold.
Exactly. So imagine if everyone is saying 2 + 2 = 5, and you're the only one that is asserting it's 4. Would you keep arguing for the fact that it's 4, or would you buy into the lie and say that it's 5 because everyone else is constantly saying it's 5, right? It's just easier, right? It's a form of brainwashing.
It can't be dismissed out of hand anymore. It requires a response. It requires...
Yes, which is why he blocked me, right? It requires a response. Ableism and discrimination requires a response. And that's why he ran and hid. He knows that. He knows he's ableist. He knows he's a bigot.
Your time, it must be debunked. I think it's actually spectacularly easy to beat. None of what I'm saying precludes educating people and correcting fascist misinformation. The only time they are granted the advantage I'm discussing here is when they are allowed to participate in that process.
Exactly. By blocking people, you don't even allow them to defend yourself. So you arbitrarily state that someone's a fascist, and you just don't allow them to speak. You don't allow them to prove themselves wrong. And you dismiss them at every chance you get.
Their bullshit when they're not present. That is
exactly when they're not present. Oh my god. Oh my god. So he's literally describing how to spread disinformation, how to spread rumors and shit. What the fuck?
both good and necessary.
And necessary. So it's necessary to spread rumors about people, to talk about people and not allow them to defend themselves. That's necessary? That's necessary for fascism.
Sadly. And I think the answer is actually pretty simple. Much simpler.
That's an incitement of violence. That's an incitement of physical violence. That's an incitement of bodily harm on myself, because he's referring to me. That is a direct threat to physically to me, because he's already mentioned he's talking about me. He's memeing about me, right? He's memeing about me. And then you have a person punching another person. So he's inciting violence on my life. Like, do I need to report this to the cops?
Simpler and easier than you might expect. There's a cost to be paid, of course, one that we need to be more comfortable paying, but we can always easily beat them, so long as we manage our expectations and are
so long as you never allow anyone to prove that they're not a fascist. So you assert someone's a fascist and you don't allow them to prove that they're not a fascist. And you waste their time forcing them to prove that they're not a fascist, all while stating they're a fascist without any proof. Because you don't believe in due diligence. You told people to not critically think.
Realistic about what we can achieve. Defeating fascist talking points is actually almost impossible to fuck up. Because you can defeat any fascist argument with one simple phrase.
This is definitely a fascist statement. That's exactly what a fascist does.